What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, and I promised I was going to do some more X-Wing content. So, as a welcome to 2024, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and talk about my preparation for the Adepticon X-Wing World Championship. Um, every competitive year of X-Wing ends in the World Championship held at Adepticon in Chicago, and I've been meaning to go for 5 years, and I finally am going to go this year. Now, going into this, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get to any of the store championships. I did make it to LSO, the Lone Star Open in the Dallas area. Did not win, didn't do well enough to get my invite. So I'm going to this. I will be going to Adepticon to enter the last chance qualifier, which is the last chance to win an invitation. That's going to be pretty steep competition. I have to be realistic about my chances there, which are somewhat low. But in the interest of giving myself the best possible chance, I am going to go through competitive tournament prep, and I'm going to do a lot of practice, and I'm going to actually document that process just to kind of show you how it ends up going. So to start, the first step is to figure out your intention. So I just ran through that. So I want to go to a competitive event and I want to win. That said, I would really, really love to do it with Scum because they're near and dear to my heart. That's my ideal faction. So we're looking at that, and I have two lists that I've been practicing. And these are both lists that I've talked about before and lists that I've looked at quite a bit. And so you can see on the screen right now, the first list I'm doing is going to be a Rebel list. Yes, I know, it's the scary Han monster. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing is a lot of the practice I'm going to do is going to be solo, playing lists against myself so I get a handle on how both those lists work, get to fine tune it before I actually use my fairly limited practice time with other people. So this is something I want to understand how it works. I want to play it and really understand the strengths and weaknesses of this squad and these ships. And also, I do want to have a Rebel list in my pocket if I need it. So we've got Han Solo with the Bistan Percepted Copilot double shot mods, terrifying monster. We've got Luke over here in the Battle of Yavin version, so he has that pre-build, able to shoot proton torpedoes without a lock or even a focus, which is gnarly. Also has that regen and attack speed, so it gets free boost actions. Is free actions, yes. Not an action, no. Gets free boosts if he goes fast enough, which is a good way to get out of dodge. And as an X-Wing, I really like X-Wings, but they do struggle with both durability and offense. This version does an excellent job of both, even if it does come in at 5 points, where a lot of them are 4. So those two are kind of mainstays of all of the really scary Han lists. A lot of the ones you see then have Fen Rao and then also have Kyo Venzi in the A-Wing, but I opted with Sabine Wren in the TIE Fighter with Beskar plating because that is enough points to fit in Chopper in the VCX 100. And coming from Scum as my main faction, I've played a little bit of most all the factions at some point, but whenever I jump from Scum to another faction, one of my first things I look for is what upgrades that faction has that Scum does not and what it can do that Scum can't. So this is just a dream combo of Magva Yarrow, who reads after you defend, if the attack hit, you may acquire a lock on the attacker, and then Saw Gerrera, who reads while you perform an attack, you may suffer 1 damage to change all of your eyeball results to crit results. And Chopper's in the VCX. The VCX has a flat 4 die primary, throwing 4 to 5 attack dice every shot, which is amazing. And the combination of having a passive focus mod, even if it does cost you a damage, which it's a VCX, that should be fine. And then Magva giving you free target locks. This is a really powerful combo that I was really excited to try out because on paper it sounds utterly devastating. Now I did practice this list, and in this game I found that Han does struggle somewhat with consistency. You can throw dice 4 times, right? So if you have trick shot, it's 4 dice, 5 if you happen to be trick shot at range 1, that you can then re-roll completely, so you can mulligan it, and then you have a focus mod, and then you get the bonus attack against a different ship. So it's really powerful. There's a lot of opportunity there, but I also got the opportunity to see a Han whiff. Because even if you're throwing all those dice, there's always the chance that you're going to miss anyway, which I did quite a bit. I also didn't fly it great. Han did survive, but didn't really have an impact on the game, which you need him to. He's an 7-point ship. Um, and then also Chopper, I had a really tough time with Chopper because I also whiffed with him because I would have the lock on the wrong ship, right? So I would have a lock on a ship I didn't really want to shoot, and then the ship I wanted to shoot, I usually didn't have a lock on. Because he's doing the reinforce, or he's doing the focus, or excuse me, the reinforce or the calculate, because it doesn't have a focus. And it just didn't hit as well as I liked, and it also got gummed up in the middle of the board, which is no surprise, but that is something that is very, very challenging and is why the VCX isn't as competitive as it could be based on the raw stats, just because it can be corralled, handled, and kind of nerfed by being stuck between rocks and in this case, a Rear Admiral Shirano in the Decimator. So I lost this. It was actually a fairly close game, and Luke did exactly what he needed to do. He fired off both proton torpedoes, got a couple objective points, and then used attack speed and R2's regen to get out without dying. So that was really good, but it still was 5 points. And the problem I had wasn't that each of these pieces was bad necessarily. It's that they didn't earn back their points, and they weren't terribly effective, except for Sabine, who was terrific. Now, thought on this Sabine, though. So Beskar, one key thing I want to point out about Beskar is this Beskar reinforced plating only works if the attacker is in your forward arc. So you have to be pointed at the attacker for Beskar to trigger, which just there's so many opportunities to shoot at Sabine and have Beskar not trigger. And this is an objective monkey TIE fighter. I don't really want her in a spot where she's going to be jousting or even pointing at opponents shooting at her. So as much as I appreciate Beskar, I actually did change that list for the follow-up here. So, and then for the second list I have, this is one I talked about in my kind of scum and villainy meta breakdown. You've got the Dr. Aphra and the YV666, Manaru and the Jumpmaster, and then you've got Lebo, the quick build, and then our Lees in the Y-Wing. The thought process behind this is all 4 of these are ships that put out a lot of damage and take a huge amount of punishment to bring down. Each of them has ways to get double mods, they have ways to get multiple attacks, and they're just very, very sturdy. Now it is 3 large base ships, and right out of the gate, I made a huge mistake with this list. I rolled in the middle a little bit slowly, and I had a shot on an I-2 Deathfire, the TIE bomber, with Aphra, and I knew in my head, with Aphra, you always, always, always reinforce, but I didn't because I didn't think that the other TIE bombers and Rack, the Decimator, who were way far back, would rocket in close enough to actually get me in arc. They did. The fact that I did not reinforce, I target locked Deathfire, thinking that I would really take him down. So I'd have the lock focus with Han, but you don't need that, and I shouldn't have done that. And that got me a halved Aphra in the first engagement, which was a real problem. Then Lebo, I flew a little bit strangely because this was crates. I went ahead and opted for that mission because it's going to be a really challenging one for these ships, and I did want that tough matchup. So I tried this on one of the worst matchups against an opponent who played his list a lot, against a very scary list that was 3 TIE bombers, Chiranu, and then Feroff in the Reaper. Rack, Chirpy, whatever you want to call him. And it was pretty devastating. They put out a lot of damage, and I was never really able to knock them out. Aphra pulled out some really, really consistent damage, even after taking that utter pounding in the beginning. And Aphra, I think I am sold on, especially this build with Rook Cast and Han Solo. So just to talk about it real quick, with this, you get into combat nice and slow. You try to make sure you're at an angle so you have a wide field or a wide view of the table with the 180-degree firing arc right there, without exposing your rear too much and making sure you have as much impact on the board before you have to turn around, which the YV does not do. And then so what you do is you reinforce, which reduces incoming damage, and then when it's your turn to engage at initiative 3, which most ships will have shot by then, you then can use the Han Solo gunner to perform a red focus, which triggers Rook Cast. So not only do you do the red action, you can then also gain a strain, which then will give you a passive focus mod. So you'll be passive focus mod, you can change, a passive blank mod. So if you roll a blank, you can change it to a hit, and then you have a focus to mod your other eyeballs. It's very, very powerful. I love the combo. The only thing I'm missing in this one is the Lando crew, which would let you use your reinforce for a reroll. I may actually try that because I am keeping Aphra in my future scum list. This has overtuned modulators, triggering in Aphra's ability because she can spend a green token to assign a stress to an unstressed ship at range 0 to 1, which is super powerful. Usually she still has a green token anyway, so I didn't really need overtune modulators, and that does also have the downside that once it's deactivated, what is this? There we go. If you aren't spending your green tokens, then you gain strain tokens, which actually is kind of nice with Rook Cast because that then triggers your if you're strained ability too. So that was an interesting ship. Next up, Manaru. You may or may not have noticed I have Boss Gunner on here. I have tried the Gar Saxon Gunner where you can throw an extra die, and so you can do Gar Saxon Notorious. That's one of the more traditional classic builds with Manaru. Personally, I absolutely love Boss Gunner because very much like Han, it lets you mulligan. And we do have a lot of lists out there like Resistance Salad, FO Salad, any salad out there, or even just Keo and an A-Wing. We've got a lot of squishy ships that roll around and rely on not getting hit. And so with Boss Gunner, you shoot, If you miss, and you can intentionally miss by not spending your mods if you want to, you take a stress and you perform another attack against the same ship. I believe it's the only upgrade in the game that lets you shoot at the same ship twice in the same attack. Like Dengar will let you do it, but on their attack, your attack. This is one where it's your initiative, your target. Boom, you hit it twice. And you can trigger it intentionally again by not spending your mods. So it's got a homing missile effect where, say you get 2 hits, right? They roll a bunch of eyeballs. They could spend a focus to evade that, or they say you're at range 1, they could then so they can either take the 2 hits or they can spend the focus to evade it. If they do spend the focus to evade it, they're taking a follow-up shot from Bosk and then potentially taking quite a bit more damage. So I'd love the bad decisions it forces, and it is a very effective upgrade to take on hard targets, like high evade ships that rely on not getting hit at all. I've got Cutthroat on there to kind of mitigate the stress, and then Contraband Cybernetics. The stress was never really an issue in this match. What really killed this is that it is a jump master, and if you get a jump master out of position, it just ends up getting shot in the butt, and there's nothing you can do about it for the rest of the game, which happened. So that's what happened to me with Dengar at LSO. Less so because I had Agile Gunner on there, but yeah, I just didn't. I'm not sold on Manaru. I wanted to try it. Wanted to try this build. The clunkiness of the ship still gets in the way, so I will be swapping that out. Next up, Lebo. I really like Lebo. I potentially will bring him back in, but it's tough to justify the 6 points. I was up against a 5-ship list that was comfortably able to corner him and keep him from being very effective. He survived the game, if I'm not mistaken. Did okay, but yeah, it just wasn't what I hoped. And then last I had Arliz Drassy with the advanced optics ion cannon turret, which with his ability makes him an extremely accurate ion turret gun. When I did get shots, it was very effective. But this would be in crates and just being a mission in general. Arliz I had in there basically to be a backfield objective piece, and he did that well, but it was a waste. It's a 3-point ship, and I did stuff that would have been just as good with Bosk, the 2-point Z95, because he was never in combat at all, really. Could have just had that crate and run for it. Yeah, I do think I will be switching that out to a cheaper ship so I have an actual objective monkey, so that if I do bring someone like Arliz, they actually do have combat output because they can actually contribute to damage. I think he fired 1 shot in the entire game because I had where I had him positioned. And a lot of this is my play, being a little bit rusty, not using these to their best effectiveness, making mistakes like putting things out of position, but it still is just a clunky list. I like the damage output, I like the durability, I can work on the decision making, but I still think this is not my final list, just because having this many large bases that are very position dependent and can be blocked or broken down was a big issue. And with Scum, you're always doing kind of a dance between durability, offense, and flexibility, because most of your durable ships are incredibly inflexible. So we're getting back to that. So those are my 2 practice games. We've gone past the intention step. We're looking at nailing down the list here. So let me show you some of the tweaks that I made here. So I kept Afra in this list. Go ahead and pull up these lists real quick, which I should have had already. And so this is my Dream Team 1.0. It's my Scum Dream Team 1.0. If I could spell. Rebel Dream Team 1.0, Scum Dream Team. So we'll jump back to Rebels because this is the one I did first. Keep on. I dropped Luke. As much as I think he's an extremely strong 5-point ship, he's still a 5-point ship and didn't come anywhere close to making up his points. He got 2 objective points, never got a kill, survived, but that's kind of a very low bar. So I took him out. And then I also took out Chopper because, again, I talked about the flying issues and the inflexibility, and just none of the stuff I put on here actually worked. Excuse me, one thing did work. I did get Chopper in the middle of the scrum and jammed, I believe it was 2 ships. So you grab a fistful of jam tokens. Every ship at range 0 to 1 at the start of the engagement phase. Yeah, start of the engagement phase. Each ship at range 0, so just bumped, gains 2 jam tokens, which is wonderful when you do that against bombers and Rear Admiral Shiranu. It was good, but it cost him so much health in the return fire, even unmodded, that it was not great. And then I kept Sabine, just because she was a 2-point, really effective objective piece, but I did a change here. Instead of Beskar, I take Precision Ion Engines to give her some more maneuverability, which combos really well with her ability to boost her barrel roll before moving. And then I went with an odd choice of Deadeye Shot. Now, this is kind of a strange one. It's really sort of a throwaway. That could be marksmanship, but eh. The thing about Deadeye Shot is while you perform a primary attack, if the defender's in your bullseye, you may spend one hit result or change one crit to a hit. If you do, the defender exposes one of its damage cards. So the idea here is Sabine is throwing 2 dice. She's not always going to be landing effective damage on larger ships or ships with a lot of health, but if she lines up that shot, and I've got 2 dice against something that has a 3 evade and whatever else on it, but it has a couple damage cards, instead of trying to get through evade dice, I could just say, you know what, you're taking that. I'm going to deal you a damage as if you change that hit to a crit. It's really, really powerful, and I've always wanted to get it to work. So here I am playing what a friend of mine called a hopeful list. But the big thing with Sabine is that the upgrades really are not important. And Beskar is a very popular choice, but I think there are so many cases where it doesn't trigger at all. I wanted to try something different. So this is still early experimentation, but that was the thought process behind that. So next up, I have one of my favorite lists ever. Was a couple years ago. I was doing some tournament prep for another game, and I ran Han plus 4 A-Wings, and I loved it. Flying a bunch of A-Wings with something big like a Falcon was very satisfying, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. So kept Sabine, and then we threw in Tycho, and both of these loadouts for both of my A-Wings are named Violence in my list, so we'll see how this goes. So we've got Tycho with 14 loadout. He's a 4-point A-Wing, so he better have it. But on here, I've got the conservative choices of Enduring and Elusive. He's got the double talents and a bunch of loadout. And I can put a missile on there, but this still just felt like a better choice. And then just to kind of get used to him, I'm also doing HLC. So he's got that heavy laser cannon. So this is an A-Wing that can put out a lot of damage. And with the reposition of A-Wings, Initiative 5, he's got the defensive mods already. So he's got passive defensive mods. So he can go ahead and focus on offense. This is a very dangerous A-Wing. And I'm very excited to roll a aggressive A-Wing. Now I'm still going to fly cagey and get the shots when I can get them and not overdo it. But I do expect him to both be very durable and do damage and be just hard to deal with, and also be very good in objective control where my other ships were not. Next up, I've got Wedge. And for him, his loadout, he only has 5, which is a real bummer. And there wasn't really much that I could put in there. And I need to check this. I've got Yi. So I need to double check this one, because my build, I have concussion missiles on here, but he doesn't appear to have a missile slot in Yasby, which may be correct, where Launch Bay is possibly not. So I'm going to build this in another one. With Wedge, you can also do Predator and Marksmanship, which is very effective with his ability to reduce a defender's dice and just give him kind of some extra passive mods. He's only got that 5 loadout, so you can also do, and there are literally no 2-point talents that he could take. Backwards tail slide? No, probably not. So this is what I've got. So 4 points, it's okay. Hang on. All right, where were we? Okay, so we're just looking at the changes to the Rebel list. And I was just looking at Wedge. I'll see about the upgrade slots. But if he ends up without a missile, that's fine. This is the build I had before I put a missile on there. If he does have a missile, I have concussion missiles, because that goes really well with his ability to reduce a defender's agility. Yeah, very nice. So yeah, so those are going to be very quick, objective-friendly ships that are very maneuverable and are a lot of fun to fly and give me a lot more dynamic, active practice, and then also are very damage-focused. So hopefully they do put out some decent damage, and then also with change to Deadeye Shot on Sabine, even if they're plinking, if they do a couple damage cards, that does give more opportunities for Deadeye Shot to trigger. So I'm here for it. And then lastly, we have Boudica Venge. Yes, I am running a Fang Fighter. Don't let me down, Boudica. Because I want a 4-point ship that is a 3 attack, and this one also has bonus attacks. And I just love flying Fang Fighters because they're very satisfying to fly. At the 4-point price point, there's not as big of a risk as most of the other Fang Fighters that you'll see in the game. And so we're looking at Mandalorian Optics and Beskar. And of course, this is one that I would run with Fearless, but that is scum only. So, Predator. Predator is a great choice because if you have that bullseye lined up, you'll get the free passive, the passive reroll on both your bonus shot and your primary shot. So he's got, Boudica has those bonus attacks. So I've got Han throwing out multiple shots, Boudica throwing out multiple shots, and then a very good objective game on a bunch of very squirrely, durable pieces. And one of the biggest changes in this list is it's a whole extra ship. So where I had a four ship list, this is 5, and it should be a lot harder for my opponents to keep up with. So that's this one. We'll jump to the scum list. I don't want to take this too long. So we went kind of back to the studs on this one. And this is going to be completely changed. But I have a ton of pilots and ships on my test list, so I may completely tear these down to the studs too, because this is the time to try a bunch of stuff while I have a couple months still ahead to practice once I settle it down a little bit. So instead of, we took out Manaru, we took out Lebo, we took out our Lees, and then we replaced them with, we've got Cad, we've got Dirge, then we've got Dace, and we have Bosk. So I talked up the value of having an objective monkey. I have had Bosk do phenomenal things in games. So super easy. We have marksmanship to trigger his ability, and then we have expert handling to make him a little bit more mobile. Probably going to die if he gets in any kind of combat, but you never know. I have had in my Z95 Bosk kill a Man Vader, and that was one of my more satisfying gaming experiences. I've also changed. I've kept Afra's build the same for now. I want to get at least one more try with that one before I change anything out fundamentally. This seems good, but my first pick is I probably will tweak this to put Lando Crew on there and or Contraband Cybernetics. I understand the call behind overtune modulators, but I don't think it's worth it for the gimmick, but we'll see. And then on CAD, shout out to Crispy on this. Crispy, our community luminary, he's been doing a lot of playing around with this build. So I am using his build with Dirge and CAD. Excuse me, sorry. So we got proton cannons, and then on CAD we have HLC and ion cannon. Now that's basically all of CAD's loadout, but the idea there is that you can then have a heavy damage output, but then also be throwing 3 dice in your front arc at all attacks. Because in a lot of cases you choose between the proton cannon or the ion cannon, and neither one feels right. So I really like this build of having both. This is a classic build from when the Separatist CAD was a bit of a menace. Of course, the title on him. And then I still have 2 points to play with, which Crispy has put Dead Man's Switch on, which I don't love, but we'll try it. We'll try it. Why not? I'll probably blow up my Z95. Nah, it'll be fine. That is fun to have him really in there in the mix and then still be a threat even if he's blown up. So that I like that a lot. This also spreads out the points a lot and gives me a whole lot more mobility. Rogues do struggle a little bit with stress, but they still are fairly mobile and have a lot of movement options and are small base. So they're interesting ships. And then on Dirge, we've got false transponder codes, and that I think is not something that Crispy has. I'll check his thing again, but we've got false transponder codes and marksmanship. With the combination of proton cannons and marksmanship, that is going to make an absolute mess of any large ship that he ends up pointing at. If I start dishing out 2 crits per shot, it's going to be a nasty, nasty combo. But also it's doubling down because proton cannons you can only... Oh, no, that's what it is. So Crispy has Fearless on here. I will go ahead and do that. And then I believe he's got Contraband. And I'll check that later. But so that's the build I'm going to go ahead and go with for Dirge, just to try it out. That could also be engine upgrade. That's another 3-point thing that would trigger more often than Contraband, but Contraband is more flexible, even if it's that single use. And then I've got the classic Dace Bonearm in here. I love the HWK. It's basically an X-Wing, but it's a 4-point X-Wing. And this one I will run as a support ship because I've been reminded over and over and over again of the value of jam. And I cannot say enough about how much I love Hondo Onaka. And I have a convenient jam monkey here in my Bosk, who will rarely care about being jammed. And because of the range bubble on the Hondo ability, I could pretty much just do that anytime. So, and this one I believe also has Fearless, just to really double down on his potential damage output. And I'll try to fly him KG and use him as bait and just really mess up my opponents. So he's sitting there with 1 extra loadout point, but there's really nothing to do with it. So this is the next scum list I'm going to go ahead and try out. I will say that when Crispy's been flying these rogues, he's been flying them with Boba. And I do love me some Boba Fett, so no promises I won't try that at some point. But So this is it. This is my 1.1 of both of these lists. And next up, I do have some actual in-person practice coming up again this Friday, which I'm very excited about. Next up is to take these two lists and pit them against each other in Tabletop Simulator, and I'll go ahead and record that as well. So that'll be the follow-up video coming out soon, so look forward to that. Appreciate the time. Hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully this series is fun. I'm very excited about getting to Adepticon, pretty excited about finding a good list, and I am happy to be flying both Scum and Rebels, although slightly embarrassed about that Han, which, whatever, it's a thing. Yeah, until next time.